So the plan for this week is, as long as we're above this level, I'm going to be buying any of those dips. So whether it's an intraday dip, whether it's a daily dip, etc., I'm interested in buying those dips. I think this can go a lot higher, like into the 480s. So last week I referenced how QQQ had a bullish engulfing candle on the weekly chart, and anything above this 470.45 level would be buyable, any of these dips. And funny enough, we actually had a complete retest right on the 470.45 level, which got picked up immediately, and then we had continuation after FOMC all the way up into my target of the 480s. So very nice move over here of upside, and it looks like, based on last week how we closed here with some pickup candles, that there could be some more to go. Now, the first thing I want to talk about here is this 483.94 level. This is going to be critical for this week, and the reason I have this level, if we go to the hourly chart, is because of previous resistances over here. For example, we have a very hard resistance over here that rejected an immediate downside move all the way down to form this pullback low that formed in August. And then over here, an additional rejection, no hourly candle closed above it. We had a rejection here, another one here, and then some more downside. Well, recently we finally had a close above, but because of OpEx, it closed below here on the weekly. So 483.94 is the level to watch for me for this week above here, and we can see continuation a lot higher into the high 480s, potentially even 490. Until that takes place, bulls want to hold the low from Friday most definitely, because if you go to the 15-minute here, if this low from Friday doesn't hold, I predict there will be a complete retest of this blue trend line over here, this downtrend. So essentially, bulls want to hold this over here going into this week. If we see a breakdown below, we're going to see this retest this downtrend here before it continues higher. If this does not happen and we just see it go back above this 43.94 level, then it can just continue on its merry way to the upside. That's kind of what I'm looking at. Obviously, these are not to scale. This is a rough sketch to show you kind of what I'm looking at now, but the principle remains the same, and this downtrend you could draw from the pivot high over here from July 10th to this high over here on August 22nd, and you can see we finally broke above it after FOMC last week. So this is what I'm looking at for QQQ this week. Flow was a nice complement, at least for the S&P 500. Now, what you're looking at here is not directional in nature. Sometimes people mistake all of this green here to be directional. If something like this happens on an OpEx day, which we just had, the September triple witching OpEx that is, flow like this is rebalancing flow. So a lot of this is just rebalancing into the next month, next quarter, potentially. So this is not directional in nature. You can see the block prints for all of these. So I don't care about any of these orders. It's not like it's a typical day and you just saw a bunch of XPX, a bullish flow or a bullish call flow coming in. It's because it was OpEx. So I don't care about any of this XPX flow. What I do care about, however, is this SPY flow that we saw, because we had a 2.3 million, 2.4 million, and then another 2 million call. So that's over 6 million in premium for the at the money strike at the time, this 568 strike, and the 1115 expiration. So this is directional in nature. These were also opening orders because the existing open interest was lower than all of the volume on each of these. So we had more volume than open interest for these orders. So was opening, directional in nature, plus it did come in above the ask. So nice to see these. This is bullish overall, so it would be good for the S&P 500 and hence QQQ as well, which is mainly what I'm watching right now. But SPY did close at a new all-time high, so no surprise that they did add some calls during Friday of last week, since a close on the weekly chart above all-time high, or at least the previous all-time high, is bullish overall. So I was able to reclaim a lot. It's able to reclaim this previous range and now back to all-time highs. Something like that is bullish. So again, no surprise we saw SPY call flow like this. Additionally, we did have a lot of dark bull prints, but similarly to what I just showed you with SPX, and the reason I'm sharing this is to make sure there's no misunderstandings based on flow. This is not directional in nature either. So very similar to this XPX flow. Like I just said, all of this dark bull prints, or all these dark bull prints that we did see on Friday, a lot of them are rebalancing as well. So just because we saw an $823 million print, $568 million print, a lot on other tickers like Microsoft as well, just because we saw that doesn't mean that there has to be a major move or a major distribution zone up here, like they're offloading a bunch of shares. That's not how that works. It's pretty typical, especially for a triple witching day like we just had, to see billions worth of premium flow through the dark pools just because, again, heavy rebalancing on that date. So nothing directional nature here. Wanted to make that clear as well. If this was a normal day and it wasn't OPEX, then that'd be very eye-catching. You'd expect some type of a pretty substantial move soon after, but since it wasn't, that is not the case here.
Hey guys, we wanted to take a minute and talk about our sponsor for today, Moomoo. With AI-related stocks being in the spotlight this year and making some big gains, you need to make sure you have a reliable broker on your side. For option traders looking to maximize returns, Moomoo's option screener could help. Unlike other platforms, Moomoo not only screens option contracts to help your search, but also provides in-depth analysis on Greeks, probabilities, and volatility. This helps you assess potential profits and risks before making a move. Furthermore, Moomoo provides another level of data, such as earnings transcripts for your favorite stocks, summarized by their AI, analyst rating reports, and much more. This allows you to make informed decisions without having to spend time digging through extensive reports. If you're a new user, sign up using our link and make a deposit to receive up to 15 free stocks, along with an 8.1% limited time APY on idle cash and a transfer-in bonus of up to $300. Don't miss out on these rewards. Terms and conditions apply.
Now, the next thing that I want to share is Meta, and this is something that I referenced in the last video as well. I saw a very bullish setup, a bullish downtrend break, a potential supply zone breakout. And I didn't even mention this inverse head and shoulder that I found last week, a little bit after I recorded that video. This one broke out like crazy. I was referencing this, I believe it was 524 at the time that I recorded the last video. So went all the way up from 524 to 560s. So low 560s were satisfied last week, which conveniently I spoke about the 560 level as being my target if it was able to break out above this 540-ish to 545 at the top of the supply zone. So it's able to do both of those things. Very nice breakout. This is a very bullish setup, guys. So I personally am looking for dips to add more to this. I don't have a position anymore on this, but I'm looking to add again if it does dip at any point this week or the following, because as long as it remains above this supply zone, we have a valid inverse head and shoulder, double inverse head and shoulder breakout. You don't see that very often, especially on the Mag 7 or indexes for that matter, but we had a double inverse head and shoulder breakout of this supply zone. So really anything in this area above the supply zone is a dip buy to me. I'm going to be looking for a dip buy around here if it does happen. So maybe under 550 if we can get mid 540s, something like that. Interested in adding again because my risk can then be below 540, below this previous resistance and now support level. So I want to see if I can get as close as possible. Like maybe it was able to drop down back to here. I add half around here, half around here. And then I could have my risk as being that 540 level. Something like that would be ideal. I don't know if that's going to happen. Something like this is very strong. Again, very rare to see a double inverse head and shoulder. We have the left shoulder, head, right shoulder, and then the left shoulder, head, and right shoulder. Very rare to see that, plus a clean supply zone break like we saw here. Pretty rare for that to happen. So this could just continue to go even higher because very strong weekly close as well. But this is top on my list for the Mag 7 that I'm watching. We haven't really seen that much crazy flow hit the tape for this just yet, which is interesting to me. We had this 550 order over here for 920, but this was on Friday, so this was likely a closing order, especially because it was in the money. So that's likely to be the case here, even though it was above the ask. Typically, when that happens on the option expiration, when you have an in-the-money order that has the same expiration, typically ends up being a closing order that just got caught in the mix and was executed above the ask for some reason. So likely what happened here, we did have last week, this will be the last thing I show, but we did have this order hit the tape. If I scroll down, for example, we had a 545 strike, I believe. Yeah, this 545 strike over here and this 540 strike. So that was nice to see. This was during the breakout phase since this happened at the 539 spot price. Remember, we closed the week at 561, so a nice appreciation to this order. This ended up going 70%, and then they closed it later on in the week. As you can see over here, we have that 545 strike again right here. So they're able to close some of that order. Same expiration. It was up 70% at the time. You can see spot price here was 560. So a very nice move. This was only a trim. They still are holding some of that position, but in this case, very nice move for that whale. Always good to see a complement to a bullish technical setup. good to see that complement in terms of the flow. Always looking for something like that, and that is the case here for Meta. Looking for more this week. If I could try and get another setup off this, just going to reinvest the profits into this trade setup. So on the house, always good to make sure you have a good risk strategy. If something worked well before, don't try and double down on it the next time. That doesn't mean it has to work again. Always good to just use similar position sizing if possible. Use profits from that previous trade setup. So it really is risk-free, all things considered. So that's what I'm looking for on a potential setup for this week. And the final thing I'll share with you is this on the VIX. Pretty interesting that we closed in the 16s last week, despite, like I just said, the S&P 500 hit all-time highs and closed the weekly at all-time highs. Last time we were at all-time highs, if you remember from back over here, was July 16th. Look at where the VIX was on July 16th during this time. All the way back here, we were in the 13s. And just before that, we were in the 12s for quite a while. It was in the 12s most of the summer months. So pretty interesting. We're in the 16s right now. Not necessarily surprising just because it is election season. Seasonality-wise, you typically see more bearish outcomes during September and October, especially during the election year. There's more volatility heading into it. So it's not a surprise to see it heightened, but this is a potential benefit for bulls down the line, especially once we get to and post-election season. There is a possibility for another vol crush like we saw in the summer over here because volatility is heightened right now, which again is very interesting because the S&P 500 is already at all-time highs. Imagine if there was a vol crush and we saw some of those hedges roll off. That's just going to incentivize some type of an additional squeeze. So something to watch for. There's still time until the elections, of course. October still has to go by, so there's some time for that. But pretty interesting. Thought I'd share that as the last thing in today's video. Regardless, as always, appreciate you guys watching this video. I'll see you guys next time.